I'm good. I'm really good. Hello and welcome to the International Women's Day Great Debate event. I am streaming live on Facebook for Business News Australia, and we are at Dalton House in Sydney. And I'm joined by the lovely Avril Henry. Avril, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Thank you for joining us. I'm great. I'm very good. I'm pumped. I'm pumped for International Women's Day. Now, Avril is a Senior Advisor on Cultural Transformation, Gender and Diversity to the Australian Chief of Army, and she's also the ACT Commissioner of Emergency Services, amongst other things.
Yes, very blokey.
Avril, thanks for joining us, like I said. What does International Women's Day mean to you?
I think it's an opportunity for us to not only look at where we've been, where we are, but also to look at how far we still have to go. And despite the progress, we've got a long way to go.
Now, you come from a traditionally male-dominated sector.
Yes.
How did you break the mould and get to where you are now?
Look, I was thinking about that just over the last 2 days, and I think when I was really young, I didn't know that I was specifically doing something, but I did feel at times, and using an emotional expression for a young woman, outraged that when I worked in structured finance and I was the first female in my 20s on the management team, that one of my colleagues who was the same age as me and hadn't finished his degree yet, and I had, and I was already a qualified accountant, was being paid more than me and had a company car and I didn't have one, and the reason given was that he was married. And I said, but so am I. And they said, but he has a wife to support. And I said, well, I'm actually supporting my husband because he's a student. And I remember thinking, you have to always do your homework. And so my advice to women, regardless of whether it was, in the 80s for me or today, is you must always do your homework. Always have the facts, the data and the research to back up your proposals, to back up the projects you want to be selected for, because then you will be selected, we like to think, on the basis of merit and experience rather than gender.
I think that's great advice. How far do you think we've come in terms of gender equality in the workplace, in a nutshell?
Look, I'm an accountant economist by training, even though for the past 2 decades I've chosen to work in the diversity and leadership space. And what I know, putting on my hat as an accountant and economist, is it'll take more than 100 years at the current rate of change to have equality on boards, on the ASX 500 in Australia. But more disturbing is given that pay inequality has continued to prevail for 5 decades, and in fact, since the GFC has gone backwards, not forwards, according to a PricewaterhouseCoopers report, it'll be over 300 years before we have pay equity. Wow. So, we're talking centuries, not decades or years. So I think we need to significantly increase the pace of change if we really want to make a difference.
And last question, what's been your biggest influence in your life?
Oh, by far Anne Sherry. And in fact, Anne Sherry, together with my grandmother, and I'm actually wearing earrings that I got from her as a young girl to honour her today. Those 2 women have had a significant influence on me in terms of boosting my self-confidence and self-belief, and that belief that you can do anything if you put your mind to it and prepare for it.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Avril, for joining us. And she'll be on stage at the Great Debate in just a few hours.
Yes,
thank you. All right, guys, I'll be back with some more interviews shortly.